Welcome YouTube family, and welcome to another video of the Kevin Strong Show. And in this video, we're going to talk about 9 signs that not only say you're not saving enough, but it's probably an indication that you're not saving enough for retirement. And I'm also going to take a look at inflation. Everybody knows what's going on with inflation, but I'm going to show you some things that nobody's talking about in detail that's really, really scary in terms of where inflation is and where inflation is likely to go. So once again, if you're new to my show, welcome. Let's start off by hitting that subscribe button, smash that like button. And without further ado, we're going to jump into this. If I do have enough time left, I'm going to show you a video of a movie that kind of explains in a very, very profound way how none of us are really in control of our environment. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this article before we get into the inflation component. So this article says 9 signs you probably aren't saving enough money, even if you think you are. So let's jump down here to number 1. You can barely pay your bills each month. This sounds like something that is Captain Obvious, but that's also an indication. Once again, I did a video the other week talking about people who are living paycheck to paycheck, but more importantly, the individuals who've been doing that for decades, because I think that's more indicative of a poor mindset opposed to somebody who just recently fell on hard times and has to struggle. So being able to barely pay your bills is a sign. One of the things that they say that you need to either earn more money or spend less. I'm an advocate of earning more money. You can only tighten your spending and reducing your expenses so much. Inflation is a very, very, very real monster out there, and it's growing on a daily basis. Number 2, you tell yourself you're save more when you start making more. So this is basically a passive aggressive way of telling your subconsciousness, oh, it's procrastination, right? You don't want to deal with the problem head on, so you put some type of condition that really you're saying to yourself that you can't control. You don't have a plan, you haven't written any goals, but you say, hey, at some point in the future, when I make more money, then and only then is when I'll be able to save. Don't wait until the new year, after graduation, for a birthday, or when a tax refund arrives in the mail. Start saving right away. And that's what I'm saying. Don't procrastinate on things like this. You haven't started saving for retirement. There's a lot of people that have neglected this. There's a lot of people who are in a position because they have neglected it. Now they're in a position where, because of inflation and wages are not keeping up with inflation, they're not in a position to save. But you have to find some kind of way, even if it means supplemental income, i.e. getting a second or a third part-time job. You have to do something to set yourself up for financial success in the future. Number 4, you don't set aside money for big upcoming purchases. Once again, you don't want to get into a situation where you're just responding to an emotional purchase, especially when it comes to things that are liabilities and not in assets. They're all saying liabilities eat you, assets feed you. Number 5, you haven't started investing. I think this is really, really important for all of us, regardless where you're at on the financial scale. Improving retirement savings are one of the ways to invest, okay? But if you want to get more involved, there are other avenues to explore. Start by researching low-cost index funds, things like that. Okay, I'm a big component of managing your own money. I think it's important for you to do that. If you choose not to, you need to understand the fundamental principles of investing, the fundamental principles of compounding interest, and the tax implications for your future investments. You just can't blindly push all that stuff aside and have someone else manage it. You don't have an emergency fund. You got to figure out some kind of way to set that up. If you don't, as we know, I think, was it 40% of Americans have less than $1,000 in their savings account, or 50%. I don't know the exact number, but this is a situation that could clearly get you upside down because of unexpected emergencies. It just sets you back. You spend over 30% of your income on housing. This is a tough one, right? And this always goes back to my theme about prevention is the best source of medicine. It's very difficult to meet this threshold in today's environment due to wages, once again, not keeping up with inflation and the skyrocketing cost of shelter in homes overall. So the only way you could possibly get this in line is you have to just earn more money. You just have to figure out a way to earn more money. There's just no other way around that. You don't track your expenses is listed as number 8. I think this is also a big thing. If you are dealing with a limited budget, it's imperative that you set up some type of monthly budget to know exactly what's coming into your household and what is going out. I tell clients all the time, can you tell me within about $100 how much you spend on average on food? Most people can't tell you that. But then they're complaining about the cost of everything. Well, the first thing you need to do is find out how much you are spending to determine if there's some way for you to reduce your expenses on a monthly basis. Last but not least, you can't pay more than the minimum on your credit card balance. Now, if you're in a situation where you have to do this, then once again, this is prevention is the best source of medicine. Now you're in a situation where you can't make the minimum payments. Another indication of this is that you're doing the balance transfer game where you take a bunch of debt that has a high interest rate on it, and then you transfer that into a promotional credit card that's giving you 0% for like 12 or 18 months. Should you do that? Absolutely. But the point I'm making in bringing that example up is that that's an indication that you probably are in a situation where things are getting very tight. Excuse me. So what I want to do at this point in time, guys, is jump over quickly to this inflation component, because like I said, I don't think anybody's explaining it from a historical perspective and giving you an indication of what it's going to look like in the future, like the way I'm going to show you on this graph here or on the screen. So let me go ahead and set this up here. And let's see here. Here we are. Okay. So this is a historical inflation rate of inflation chart. This is going to be very telling. So what I want you guys to look at, I'm going to go all the way back here, and I want you to go back to 1970. So I'm going to highlight 1970. This column here, as you see, the last column here is the average. That last column there, all the way to the right. So when we go to 1970, I want you guys to take a look at this. I'm going to highlight 1970 to 1980. But stay focused right here on the right side. That's a whole decade of probably around what? Averaging around what? 7%. You don't see anything under 4% for 10 years. Even when you go up a little bit higher and you start going up to the early 1980s, it doesn't really start to settle down a little bit until around 85 to 86. And then it starts to peak back up again. So you don't really get below 3% until 1993. Keep in mind, listen to what I'm about to say. Historically speaking, when you look back at that chart from 1970 to 1993, that's 23 years that we had a rate of inflation at or above 3%. So why am I giving you that historical perspective? Because now I'm going to move it all the way up until the modern day of 2024. As you can see here in 2021, right when we were coming out of the healthcare crisis, after spending all of that money, stimulus, extending unemployment, the government doing all these spending programs, as you can see, focusing over here to the right, you start to see inflation above 3%. So the last time you have year after year after year showing inflation at or above 3%, you got to go all the way back to around 2000. It happened here. And then you got to go back, as I said before, to 1993. So what's the point in bringing that up? My point is that back in 1970 to 1993, when we went 23 years of having inflation at or above 3%, we didn't have the type of debt that we have right now. We have all-time debt when it comes to student loans, credit card, mortgage debt, automobile debt, the deficit. We're at a point, we're at a Rubicon, we're at a point of no return. And this is why I think moving forward, inflation's probably not going below 3% for quite some time. This is going to continue to put pressure on people who are at the marginal point of their income, for people who don't have disposable income, for people who aren't willing to be creative and create more income. This is a very, very telling sign because a lot of people talk about, well, we have historic inflation. Inflation hasn't been this high in 20 and 30 years. But what they fail to analyze is that when you look at it in succession, that's a very, very ominous thing. Once again, 4, 8, and 4. You don't get to 4, 8, and 4 as I go back down here until 1991. That's well over 30 years ago before we had like 3 consecutive years where inflation was at least 4% or higher. This is why I think this is a very, very serious problem that people are not talking about. I think a lot of people are disillusioned. You know, I say this all the time. People are so fascinated with their own circle of life that when they look up, they realize that the real world is passing themselves by. So I'm going to spend about 3 minutes on this clip that kind of talks about this. This is a movie called Instinct with Cuba Gooding Jr. in it, and I think Anthony Hopkins. And there's a scene where he's a psychiatrist, Cuba is, and Anthony Hopkins is this crazy guy. And Cuba Gooding Jr. is basically telling him, hey, man, I'm in control. He's delusional, like most of us are. But you'll get the point. What he's saying is that I'm here to assess your mental faculties. I'm here to determine whether or not you get out of solitary confinement. I'm here to determine whether or not you get to rekindle your relationship with your daughter. All of these things he's saying in the cell. And then Anthony Hopkins is going to quickly show him that even though he perceives himself as being in control, he actually isn't. And this applies to all of us. So we're going to go ahead and jump on this real quick. Sorry about this being a little bit of a longer video, but I think it's a very, very powerful message. And I'm going to share that with you right now. So let me go ahead and bring this up. And now you have the background of it if you haven't seen it before. And here we go.
I'm in control, huh?
Yes.
Who's in control?
He's asking who's in control now.
So who is in control? Huh? Are you? Am I? The guards outside? The warden in his office? Yeah? Who's in control? Testing. 1, 2, 3, 4. Dr. Ethan Powell interviewing Dr. Theo Porter. Now, this will be a very simple test. Pass or fail, life
Quickly
or
things
death.
change.
Ready,
You
Sean?
think you're
So you
controlling
write
the
on this
environment,
paper what
but
I
you're
have
actually
taken
not.
from you. What have you lost? Write it!
He's asking, what have you lost?
Wrong. Never had control. You only thought you had it. An illusion, tappy bourgeois. What do you control? For sure. Huh? The volume in your stereo, the air conditioning in your car. What else? What else? All right. Another chance. You were nervous. Too much pressure. Try again. What have you lost? What did I take? Write it. Write it! You're a fool, Jules. Do you think you were free? Where were you going at 2 o'clock today? Into the gym, right? In the morning, your wake-up call. In the middle of the night, when you wake up sweating with your heart pounding. What is it that has you all tied up, Joua? Tied up in little knots? Is it ambition? Yeah. You're no mystery to me, boy. I used to be you. Okay. One last chance. You think I won't do it? That's one psychiatrist less to the world. I'm already deep in the pit. So what can they do to me? Last try. Get it right. What have you lost? What did I take from you?
Here it comes.
Right. Yeah. Congratulations. You're a student after all. And you've lost nothing but your illusions and a little bit of skin.
right? Very, very, very powerful. You think you're in control, but you're not. I've done videos talking about there's only about 1.7 trillion physical dollars that are circulating throughout the whole world. 98% of all the money that exists is basically digital. Only 2% is really physical. So whatever the amount of money that you have in terms of wanting to convert that to physical cash, you can only get 2% of it. But most of us, regardless of where we're at, see 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9-figure digits on the screen, and we interpret that as being rich. We interpret that as being in control. But most of it, if not all of it, is illusion. So I hope you enjoyed this version of the Kevin Strong Show. Once again, if you have not subscribed, please do so. Share this button before you click off. Please hit that like button. That helps YouTube recognize that people are watching and enjoying my content. And I thank you for spending some time with me, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video.